You're listening to Infoverity's Trust Us podcast, where you can gear up for your data management journey with bite-sized discussions on industry trends and thought leadership. On each episode, we'll feature industry experts to help you navigate your path to mastering your enterprise data. All right. Today on the podcast, we'll be talking about all things healthcare in the enterprise data management space, from use cases to trends to how to get started. Our guest for this episode is Jim Farley, the Director of Healthcare and Life Sciences Practice at Infoverity. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. Would you mind telling the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Jocelyn. Yeah, happy to be here. Like you said, my name's Jim. I run our healthcare life sciences practice in vertical here at Infoverity. I've been at the firm for my entire career, over 10 years, focusing on data management problems and, started working on a string of hospitals and then graduated kind of medical insurance companies and pharmaceuticals. And, where I like to focus is on how does our data products, data solutions, help the business and inevitably create value for our customers. So kind of found a niche in an industry group and kind of stuck there. So I've been doing this for a while at Infoverity.
Awesome, Jim. Well, let's go ahead and dig into some of our topics. And first and foremost, I want to start off with some of our key healthcare use cases, just to get some of our listeners acquainted with some of the stuff that you and your practice does. So, what are some of those key healthcare use cases for enterprise data management?
Sure. And if I could just back us up a little bit, just so like folks know, hey, when we say use case, that term's thrown out a lot in the industry. But I mean, like one of the kind of first healthcare projects that we're on, and when I was dealing with the stakeholder, you kind of think like, hey, they're doing a master data management program. They probably have a good plan. They probably know why they bought this $1 million software, how it's going to help, some part of this, in this case, a hospital, a children's hospital. And, it became clear after a couple of different, meetings with the stakeholder group, wow, we don't have a good use case. We don't have a reason is really all use case is to create this MDM, this provider master, right? Hey, we know our provider data is dirty. We should probably clean it up. That tends to be, 5, 6, 7 years ago when these like large data management projects were being thrown around. That was a good enough reason. It just doesn't work today. We need to have a value proposition. We need to have a path forward. So, like one of our biggest ones is getting the provider on the hospital side, getting the provider rosters and the provider Find a Doc websites accurate. And, for those that don't know, hospitals have gone through a heck of a lot of merger and acquisition throughout the first couple, really the last 10, 15 years. And data, it lives inside the EMR system, what MyChart is based off of, but it lives in all these different places. So bringing it together, cleaning it up, making it accurate so that you, the patient, go onto a website and say, oh, hey, look, this doctor really is at this place Mondays and Tuesdays. And he really does accept new patients. And he really does have this phone number. And I think, for anybody that's tried to find a doctor or a specialist, you've probably run into bad information. So that's a use case that we've done a lot of just because it makes sense. It affects patient satisfaction. And it's a true reason that gets us in touch with our marketing stakeholders in particular, and just helps the organization rather than just having it be an IT project. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but when I get fired up about use cases, and there's a story behind why. It's because I was pulling my hair out at my first couple of clients going like, really? There's no plan? Nobody has a reason that they're doing this? And that just frustrated me. So I've tried to kind of make it my job to find the why at our customers.
That's great insight, Jim. And that definitely, we love it when our guests get fired up about something. That's why we have you on. So based on some of those use cases that you mentioned, some of those key problems for clients in the healthcare industry, how do those use cases inform some of the trends of technology in this space? And what are some of those top trends that you see within this space?
Yeah, the biggest trend that kind of stays in the vein of the marketing, side is that a lot of retail folks have moved into healthcare because they see a lot of opportunity. A lot of people will joke, healthcare is like 10, some people say 20 years behind when it comes to technology. And the biggest trend right now in the marketing side of things is know your customer and know and do preventative care with them to avoid, and this is more prevalent on the medical insurance side, but to avoid, a more ghastly or serious, and then in the case of a medical insurance company, a more costly medical problem down the road. How do we get preventative? How do we know our customers? How do we know how they're interacting with their health? How do we influence that? And how do we incentivize them to take health into their own hands? And then on the flip side, for the hospital systems, how do we attract customers to stay in our network? And how do we make sure that we are, marketing to them the correct way and that they know all those options? So really knowing your customer and digital experience is still a really big trend that we're seeing. And, you need to have good foundational data to do that.
So you mentioned good foundational data. If our listeners are thinking about how they want to invest in this space or in any use cases that they might have developed with our help or others' help, what are some good places to get started?
Well, I always, suggest, follow the money. If you're trying to build out ROI or value proposition, there's a reason that provider, member slash patient, location are some of the biggest data domains, and they're interchangeable across whether you're talking to a pharmaceutical company, you're talking to a med device company, whether you're talking to a hospital or a payer. They're really all tied to how does money change hands. A claim gets submitted by the hospital, that's how they get paid. Enrollment by the payers is how they get money for the year in terms of having people that are paying them for their insurance. So it's really kind of like, okay, here's a record that I know is really important to the organization. And let me take that a step further and be like, okay, does Rev Cycle care about claims? Do they have pain points around the quality of our claims data right now? Or our enrollment data, and kind of working through what are all the different business units that care about this, and then asking them a handful of questions, and they might come to the conclusion, oh yeah, this is costing me actual X. And then now you really have some ammo to go up to your, if you're an IT person, up to your VP, your CIO, and say, yeah, I'm not just building this cool technical thing that gets us really excited because we really like clean data. Here's the ROI. I'm saving you X amount of man hours that could be repurposed somewhere else. Or claim denials might go down by 5% and save us, $10 million. I'm making those up, but those are the type of extra steps that you can go to get investment inside your organization. And that's what we try to help customers out with by, just bringing more examples of what we've done in the past.
I'm hearing a lot of common themes with some of our other guests as well, relative to making sure that you're defining your use case in a way that really resonates with the business and what your strategic objectives are. In the absence of that, what are some other tactical things that businesses can do to prepare for some of these transformations that they'd like to?
Well, I guess what they can do to prepare, I guess data is always evolving in this space. So I guess how can you prepare for a transformation like this? I think, the trendy consultant answer is don't boil the ocean and look for the low hanging fruit and all that stuff, right? But there is a little bit of truth to that. And, it kind of speaks to my last answer. It's like, let's stick with things that might not be your favorite pet project but really are going to add value to the organization. And it doesn't have to necessarily be monetary value. It also like that find a doc use case that I spoke about, it can be just about, hey, this is the right thing for patient satisfaction, and that's what we're in the business of doing. We're nonprofits. We're trying to help patients. So I guess what you can do to prepare for a transformation like that is kind of just identify and know where the information you need to wrangle up lives. and what the impact it is. And just, it's kind of just a method of just being curious and just keep asking questions, network within your, just really network outside of IT. And, data is typically never good enough. So they'll give you plenty of ammo for you to start building a business case to fuel that transformation. And then when it, inevitably occurs, you'll have at least the, hey, here's where all the bodies are buried. Here's where all the data pain points are. Here's where we need to go, and here's what we need to consolidate. Versus, so that's like good, pre-planning that you can do before, if you see one of these transformations on the rise or it's coming to your organization.
Excellent, Jim. Well, thank you so much for sharing those insights. And now that we have some additional information on the healthcare space, we've kind of laid some of the groundwork. What are some ways that Infoverity can help organizations on this journey to healthcare data transformation?
Well, we can help in a lot of different ways. I mean, we range from doing the upfront strategy for you, or we can just go through that process I just described, and we can network within your organization. We can ask those questions, and we can kind of help build that business case. And okay, here's a tactical roadmap for executing it. From there, it's master data management, data governance, data warehousing and analytics. AI enablement, specifically around getting information democratized and setting up self-service. And once you have this information, one of the coolest things we can now do with natural language processing is let people speak to the data sets that we've curated that are truly in the business, and we don't have to write them a report. We don't have to download an Excel. We can really link them up into their own little rooms where they can start communicating with the data in the language that they know. And we can provide all the context of how that data came to be and the definitions of it and everything. So, I mean, Infoverity can help with all the foundational data quality governance, MDM. We can also take it all the way up into the cutting edge AI space. And then, we can also do things like keep the lights on for you, keep your systems up and running, and with operational support. So we kind of tackle the problem all over the place. What we in the vertical team really focus on is the upfront strategy, the execution, and then being embedded in those project teams and making sure that, oh, okay, you'll get a bunch of data modelers in there, and then they'll look at the data and they'll say, okay, we should make the model X. But there might be, healthcare lessons learned that we know, hey, that's not going to fly with legal, or that's not going to fly with marketing, or good luck getting that back into your Epic instance, for example. That's where we're embedding healthcare experts in there that have this 10 years worth of healthcare experience or medical insurance or pharmaceutical experience, and are kind of making sure that IT and more technical decisions are being made with industry best practices. So I guess in terms of how we help, it's all over the place. And we can help in a lot of ways, but the biggest thing is at the end of the day, getting trustworthy data and context around how it's trustworthy and making it usable and making it actionable.
And I think that industry expertise is just so critical to helping customers navigate similar problems at similar organizations. That, that depth of expertise comes with decades of experience, and I'm happy that we're able to offer our listeners that.
It also gives you credibility, especially like healthcare thinks that they're the only ones that can do their job. And us IT people that I'm speaking to, and I'm an ex-IT person now, kind of more of a healthcare guy, but a lot of the data challenges are the exact same from organization to organization. But an IT person will probably tell you that. But when you go talk to the leader of provider credentialing, who's worked at the regional health system for 20 plus years, that individual thinks that their data challenges are very unique and only apply to, some clients have even said, oh, we're an academic medical center. Our problems are way different than just a regular old hospital. Part of the reason that industry expertise is important is it gives you credibility. Like, I didn't know how to say a provider specialty I was profiling on my first project. Otolaryngologist, I couldn't pronounce that for my life. Then you start, talking the talk, little bit more jargon, and just reading articles and understanding your client's business and seeing the same pain points over and over again, client to client. It's a reason, it's how we can help, but it's also how any IT leader should approach this, is trying to speak your business's language so that they trust you. And even if the data challenge is just the same as in retail or manufacturing or government, whatever, hey, we just need to normalize, or we just need a filter. It could be something that simple. Giving a little bit of context around how it applies directly to the business they know and love, or know and have just been working there too long. That's really critical. And it'll put some guards down, especially in a somewhat hostile industry. Healthcare can tend to be in tribal as it is. It'll really go the extra way. So I don't know if that answered your question, but like, that's just some of the lessons I've learned over the years that I would just agree with your point.
It absolutely does. And it all goes back to some of the points that you've made throughout this discussion, which really resonated with me and which are really consistent, among all the different guests that we've had on the podcast so far, which are tying whatever actions you are taking from an IT perspective or from an enterprise data management perspective back to a use case, back to a reason why you want to make these investments, why you want to change something, and making that meaningful, not only from a monetary perspective, but also just from a customer experience perspective. So making the actions that you're taking meaningful, breaking that down into an actionable roadmap where you can break things down into chunks and deliver things incrementally and demonstrate that return on investment incrementally, so that you don't get overwhelmed by this huge journey that you do have in front of you. But again, tying it all back to value, reasons, use cases. And then also another takeaway that I had was networking. So making sure that you understand within your business and within your customer base what their true pain points are. And I think that that really aligns perfectly with what you're describing Infoverity can offer, which is a way to articulate all of this, whether it be a strategy, articulating a return on investment, articulating how things align with an enterprise's strategic objectives in a way that really resonates because we have such deep industry expertise. So those are some of the things that I took away from your comments that I think are, again, really impactful and are really consistent themes that we have heard so far. Does that resonate with you as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're all, the funny thing about being in data management and, thinking, oh, I'm going to work with models and all, when you're getting up to a certain point where you're fighting for something you care about, you think it's a really cool project, or it's going to solve a solution, or it's going to be really good for your client. We're all in sales a little bit, right? We're selling in all directions. We're selling the technical folks on why this technology is going to solve their problems. We're selling business folks on these are the problems that you really care about and how data is going to solve them, and then marrying that all together. And it just takes, every group you're getting requirements from, and you're negotiating because you got to get to a point where, hey, the requirements are locked in. Otherwise, this thing's going to keep spinning out of control. You also want to break things. We all want to be agile, right? We all want to break things up into little bite-sized chunks that we can say, okay, I got something done this week, versus 6 months of like, oh, we chipped away at it. I can't really exactly tell you how much, but we're chipping away. Like that doesn't tend to work out well anymore. So I mean, everything you said there is all part of the game and all part of the fun that we have in just being in data management. But I think it's really critical. And then the one thing I just add to that is just making sure that those use cases are stacking up on your journey, right? Your big goal might be AI data enablement, and getting natural language processing, getting chatbots to your users of critical data. That might take a while. So how do you stack wins on your way up to that and say, well, let's focus on a small subsection of member data or claims or enrollment or provider referrals. We just did a use case around provider network leakage, where all we did is focus on the referral data, not the entire claims. And we married it with some of the data we'd already helped master with provider, and what we've already governed with provider for that previous find a doc use case. And we came up with, okay, wow, we can really identify, here's the top, 20 physicians that are, referring patients out of the health network, which is a loss of revenue. It's something that small, and it wasn't the step one. It wasn't the first thing we could have done. But after we unlocked one, you're kind of building a foundational IT system that can unlock other things while you're tackling a near-term use case at the same time. So just stacking wins, and that's really the art of building out a good program, is delivering low-hanging fruit, quick wins, whatever consultant jargon. Those really do matter. That's why we say it so much. On your way to the top of the tree, to the big apple that's up there, like AI, self-service data ecosystem. So I just think that's the way humans naturally work. We got to see and have our trust validated along the journey. So you got to find those checkpoints to say, here's some incremental value, here's some incremental value. Oh, and here's how it's all going to, crescendo at the end of your season and into a really good finale. I think that's the biggest challenge we all have as storytellers, as salesmen, and as data management folks. We got to be everything and wear a lot of hats.
Well, and just as human beings, it can be so daunting to think about these huge enterprise level programs that are going to be going on for the next decade. And how do you even get started, right? Well, I think it's one step at a time. Serves a lot of different purposes, and I think it's a really good approach that we're all moving toward, just in the interest of being able to chip away at these huge initiatives that we know we need to do.
Yeah, and it's also like we always, for business leaders out there, we all want to know exactly to the date, and technical folks, we want to know what's the final future state going to be. I just think also building in some flexibility, because that's just not how life works. It's like it's going to change along the way, and let's have epics, right, that are 18 months out. Let's have stories that are 2 weeks out, and with dedicated points and finite. And let's just make every decision with flexibility in mind too. I guess I would just add to that, because it's I've been there. I've been on a current client, for 5 years. And what we're doing now is so vastly different than when we started off, but it was, just through discovery, curiosity, working with the business, kind of tie it back to that first point. So just keep an open mind, keep flexibility, and just keep over communicating, because if you'll figure it out if you just keep chatting, and then it's if you let it fester when, surprises happen and then things can go a little bit off course. So just it's very foundational, but just over communicate.
I think that's a great place to end. I think that's a great message to end on. Jim, before we wrap up here, is there anything that we didn't ask you today that you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, I mean, I'm really thankful to have us on, for us to speak a little bit. We have lots of more things we potentially could have covered. Yeah, nothing I can really think of. I really appreciate the time to talk about data management, and hoping to continue this journey and find more problems, and just help people do business better, because every company is a data company at this point. So the more better we get as a society, the better these businesses are going to run. So no, I think that's all I got, Jocelyn. I appreciate the comment.
Thank you so much, Jim. We really appreciate it. We're excited for listeners to get through this episode and be as energized as you are. And I really hope that you're back for more topics in the future. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you very much, Jim.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
For more than a decade, Infoverity has been established as an industry-leading consultancy specializing in solving enterprise data management business problems with best-in-class technical solutions. Our firm has consultants located around the globe, with headquarters in Columbus, Ohio, and Valencia, Spain. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you, please visit our website at infoverity.com. We've also included additional contact information in the show notes.